It's Dana Cavalea here with the Becoming a Champion show. I got a great episode here for you today with the founder of Fit to Fat to Fit, Drew Manning, my friend. And I got to tell you, his journey is amazing. He was a personal trainer, and he had so many clients say, Drew, you don't know what it takes to lose weight. You don't understand what it is that I deal with. So what Drew did was he decided he was going to go from 187 pounds, built like an Adonis, and over the next few months, he was going to go up to about 240 plus. And then he was going to go on a journey and show everybody, and he's still on that journey now, how to get that off. And it's a really fun episode, and we talk a lot about comfort versus discomfort. So if you're somebody that wants to improve your life, improve your performance, improve your mind, and improve your body, this is a great episode for you on the Becoming a Champion show with Drew Manning. And if you like it, please give us a like, give us a subscribe, sit back and enjoy the show with Drew Manning. See ya. Were you always a fitness guy? Like as a kid, were you into fitness, like working out, doing push-ups, or were you a kid that maybe was a little bit overweight and that's what got you here?
That's a really good question. No, I grew up my entire life fit and active. So there was 11 siblings in my family. My parents had 11 kids. I don't know how in the world they did that. But my older brothers played football and wrestling. So I was like, oh man, I want to be like them. So I remember seeing them like working out and having muscles. And so from a very young age, I started lifting weights and got into wrestling and then football. And, from a very young age was very, very active. And so, yeah, I guess you could say I was always into fitness. And I remember it carried over to when I was about to get married. So I was like 25 at the time. And I remember all my friends that were getting married around that age, they would just let themselves go. And I'm like, dude, I don't want to be that guy that like is married. It's like, okay, I don't need to impress anyone anymore. And I was like, I'm going to keep working out. So kind of, through my college years, played a little bit, here and there in college, a few different colleges. And then from there got married and was like, I'm going to keep this up. And then 2009 became a personal trainer. And then around 2011 is where the idea of Fit to Fat to Fit came from.
Now, when you first did it, was it something like I know, we'll get into this too, you're a business guy, but was it something you did as just, for marketing to promote yourself as a trainer the first time, or was it really to just relate to the clients?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Honestly, it was mostly to relate to my clients because I had zero marketing experience. I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't have like budget for a PR team. I think I spent a few $100s on a Squarespace website that I created myself. My hope was that maybe the local news here in Utah would pick it up, but I had no strategy or marketing, experience to make it big. I just was kind of like, okay, I'm going to do this for my friends and family. They'll tell their friends and maybe someone will pick it up. But honestly, my intention was, okay, here I am, someone who's never been overweight a day in my life, trying to help people who are overweight. My intention is to gain a better understanding so that I could better understand why it's so hard for people. I couldn't understand why it was so hard for people because I've always been in shape, and for me it was easy. So that's kind of my intention going into it.
Yeah, it's like, Drew, that's easy for you to say. You don't know what I deal with. And now,
Yeah.
you go through an experiment like that and you know exactly what they're dealing with. What
Yeah.
would you say? What are most people dealing with? They're overweight. Some of them are still scratching their heads as to how they got to that point. It
Mhm.
was a slow journey, I'm sure, of overeating, getting out of caloric balance. But for many people, like that are trying to get themselves out of this place, like what are some of the first steps?
That's a really good question. And, this is where fitness is so individual. And we like to, in the fitness industry, streamline it and make it seem, okay, everyone does do this exact same thing, and you'll get these exact same results. And so I think what happens is a lot of people, like you said, slowly, maybe 5 pounds a year over the course of 10 years, that's 50 pounds. And you're like, okay, okay, now I need to change. My doctor says I'm pre-diabetic and there's all these meds that he wants me to take or, whatever it is. And then like, okay, how do I get started? Well, they know in a nutshell, I think most people know, okay, I need to eat less food, right? And I need to work out. Those are the two main things that people kind of dive into. The biggest surprise and the biggest mistake I think people make is underestimating how powerful and how emotional this journey is about to become. Like they go into it thinking, okay, cut out calories, I got that. Work out, I got that. But they don't account for how addicted they are to certain foods and how powerful the emotional connection to food is that they've created for themselves over the past years and decades of their life, they've created this emotional dependency and this chemical dependency on these foods, so that when they go through a stressful time or they go through a hard time, they gravitate towards food or alcohol to numb the pain. And then they create this vicious cycle where people get stuck in that loop of like, anytime they have a stressful day, oh man, that beer would be really nice right now. Or, oh, I'm going out with some friends, pizza, beer, wings, whatever it is. Like, and we create these habits, and then they try and go on a diet and willpower their way into, okay, now I have to eat salads, now I have to be hungry. And they almost look at it as a chore. So I think the biggest shift, the biggest thing people could do is learn how to shift their perception of what fitness is. And it doesn't have to be this thing that sucks. It doesn't have to be this thing that's a chore that, they hate, and they do it for a period of time in hopes to lose some weight, in hopes to feel better about themselves.
Mm.
It really has to do with unlearning as much it is like learning new techniques, like unlearning the way you programmed yourself to think about fitness instead of this punishment, this chore you have to do. Maybe look at it through a new lens where it's like, hey, I'm doing this because I care about myself. I want to be here for my kids. I want to be here for my grandkids. And I know that, yeah, these foods make me feel good, but in the end, is that what's going to really bring me happiness? So we can talk about the basic steps of how to get there, but in the end, it's a big shift in perception that really needs to happen, because we could sit here and talk all day about calories and macros and which diet's going to work best and which exercise they need to do and how they need to have discipline and push themselves. Yes, for some people that can work, but I say the majority of the population doesn't really, they just don't have discipline. And so how do you get started? It's little baby steps. And so some of the things that I have my followers do is start off with stuff that has nothing to do with fitness and everything to do with training the brain and the mind to become comfortable in uncomfortable situations. And if you can train your brain to become comfortable in many, situations where you're uncomfortable, then that carries over into eating healthy food, where it's like, okay, this doesn't taste as good. I want my cake and my ice cream, which makes me feel good. Same thing with exercise. Hopefully it carries over into exercise too, where you're breathing heavy, you're sweating, your muscles are burning, it's uncomfortable, but now you've trained your brain for a period of time to become comfortable in those situations where you're like, okay, I know this sucks, but I got this, I can do hard things. And so some of those specifics that I teach my followers to do are things like making your bed every single day. That's not going to give you six pack, but it's a mental discipline thing where you do it every single day. Same thing with a cold shower, like 60 seconds of a cold shower at the end of your shower. Yeah, it sucks, especially when it's wintertime, here in the US and it's freezing cold in certain areas. Like being cold is an uncomfortable situation, but if you can learn to breathe for 60 seconds and just embrace the suck, then you're training your brain to become comfortable in an uncomfortable situation. And after a period of time, it's like, okay, what else can I do that's hard, that's uncomfortable, but now I know I can do these hard things. So it's kind of a unique approach to fitness, but it really works in training someone's brain to, to do these hard things that are required to lose weight.
Yeah. Well, I think it's just, you're taking people out of a state of comfortable. And I think, whether it's fitness or whether it's starting a business or whatever it is, right? We have to take ourselves out of comfort. And far too many people have gotten far too comfortable, and food is just an aid, that they use to create more comfort. So it sounds like you're saying, hey, we're going to disrupt this pattern that you've created, and we're going to do so by introducing discomfort.
Yes, exactly. And that's really the key to living a healthy lifestyle, because like I said, people struggle with that first like 2-3 weeks of, oh, my muscles are sore, I'm tired, I'm exhausted, I'm hungry all the time. And they're like, why am I doing this? I'm only losing a pound. Like I should be losing 10 pounds based off the effort I'm putting in. And so it really just restructures people's thinking patterns to like, all right, let's start with small and simple. This isn't a race. That's the problem, is people think it's a race. Like, I want to lose 20 pounds this month. Okay, cool. But you gained 50 pounds over the course of like 10, 12 years. And now you're like, okay, you want to lose 20 of that in a month? Like, that's just not realistic for most people. So that's why like things like making your bed, taking a cold shower, meditating. There's also a gratitude list I have people do, isn't really sexy for people, because they're like, no. What workouts do I need to do to get the six pack? It's like, okay, hold on a second. We'll get there. And you probably can relate to that with athletes sometimes. They're like, dude, I want to hit a home run. I want to do this. It's like, all right, let's start with like this little movement. And they're like, what is this going to do for me? It's like, just trust me, trust in the process,
It's true. And, Drew, for us, like what we teach athletes is, hey, listen, don't worry about outcome. Just
Yeah.
focus on being competitive. If you're a pitcher, if
Mm,
you're a hitter, just be competitive. And
yeah.
what does competitive mean? And that's your job, right? And then if you're competitive enough, the outcomes will take care of themselves, provided you have the right skill and the right talent. But as you're speaking, this word discomfort keeps popping
Yeah.
into my head. And it's again, like, how much of life is actually comfortable? And it's almost like we're fighting to make what is uncomfortable comfortable.
Yeah, it's almost, well, it's because of the way society is set up now. It's like you have to go out of your way to create discomfort, because everything from the beds we sleep in, the clothes we wear, the air conditioning, the heater, the refrigerator, the freezer, the warm showers, like all these things at our fingertips, that it's like, hey, if you're uncomfortable, boom, we've invented something to get rid of that
Yeah.
discomfort, to the extreme. And so it's like, oh man, now you're in this safe little bubble. And like, if you want to be like a David Goggins style person, you have to go way out of your way to be uncomfortable,
Mm-hmm.
because you've trained yourself like, oh, this is nice, this is comfortable, this like massage chair I have in my house now, like I don't have to move all day. and whereas back in the day, 100, 200 years ago, I mean, there's all kinds of discomforts that were just part of life, and now we've fixed those things with technology and stuff. So like, for example, fasting, to do a 24-hour fast, whereas back in the day, maybe that was just something like, hey, we don't have any food today, we're gonna have to wait till tomorrow, and that's just part of life. Or like, hey, I want to jump into an ice bath, I have to like get the ice and like fill up my, you have to kind of go out of your way. So same thing with
Yeah.
eating healthy. Like, everything is set up for comfort food, and we make it convenient, and we make it taste freaking really good, because I know just as much as everyone else, this food tastes good, I did it. And it's hard not to gravitate towards that. And it's affordable and cheap. And so now, if you want to eat healthy, now it's this uphill battle where it's like, all right, now I have to meal prep, I have to spend more money on organic produce, and I really have to like be prepared and have this healthy food ready to go, because man, it's so much easier to push a button on your phone and Uber Eats shows up and you got food for the whole family, and it's fast food, and yeah, sometimes it can be cheaper.
Yeah.
So that's what I think is hard for people, is like the whole discomfort thing is like, you're fighting an uphill battle because of the way society is structured now. And that's why I think a lot of people struggle with living a healthy lifestyle, because it's almost inconvenient, and we want convenience.
Yeah. And I almost think too, discomfort and laziness go right. They go hand in hand. They're partners. And even a lot of the foods that are available today, do we even take the time to see what the heck is even in these things? I mean, I bought some eggs the other day, and
Okay.
the labeling's great, it's beautiful, and I take it home. My wife's reading what the feed is, right?
Hmm.
Soy and all sorts of crap that these birds are fed, and then
Yeah.
we're wondering why we react physically to some of the foods that we consume. But the laziness, the discomfort, we're a very topical society in many ways,
Hmm.
and,
Yeah, and I think
and
it's hard for people. Yeah, I think that, like I said, we kind of have to go out of our way to research, okay, what's healthy nowadays? Oh, I have to listen to this podcast, I have to read this book, I have to like really do my own research to figure out, oh, in the fine print, there's these ingredients that I didn't know about. I thought all eggs were created equal. Well, no, you look at what the chickens are fed in some areas, and like, no wonder there's so many issues, like antibiotics and hormones in our meats and eggs, and it carries over into us when we eat it. You are what you ate. And so in that sense, like the things that are fed to the animals that we eat get passed on to us. And so, yeah, if you just like mindlessly go buy the food and eat it, you don't really know. But if you take time to research it, look into it, now like opens up a whole new world. But you have to make that effort or make time for that. Whereas most people, they don't care. They're just like,
yeah,
okay, eggs, meat, like that's food. I don't really
yep,
know how it got there, but it's there, and I'm just putting it in my body. Oh, I'm sick. Okay, I'll take these pills.
yep.
You know what I'm saying? That's kind of the problem in our society.
Yeah, yeah, it's all quick stuff. Drew,
Mhm.
some of my folks may not know what you're all about. Like, what is this fit to fat to fit, Dana, that you're talking about, that you guys are talking about? Just can you give a quick rundown on what it is that you did and you're doing again?
Yeah, thanks for, yeah, we should probably touch on that, right?
Yeah.
So back in 2011, I had this crazy idea. Like I mentioned in the beginning, I grew up my entire life in shape, and I ended up becoming a personal trainer. Like most trainers, what did I know about being overweight? Absolutely nothing, other than it's like, oh, you just have to eat less and work out, and it shouldn't be that hard. And so my clients would struggle to follow the meal plans. Like, oh man, I was supposed to eat this, but I went out with some friends and gave in, had some pizza. And the old version of me was like, so frustrated. Like, okay, put the junk food down, put the soda down, go to the gym. Like, how hard could it be? It's so easy for me. Why is it hard for you? And one of my clients, who was my brother-in-law at the time, kind of told me, like, Drew, look, for you, it's easy. I get it. But for me and for people like me, it's been hard our whole life. And I couldn't understand why it was so hard for them. And so I created this idea, or this idea popped up in my head. Um, this idea popped up in my head. What if you got fat on purpose and documented that journey? Would that give you better understanding? And so it was like this idea, this light bulb went off, and I almost felt called to do it in a weird way. But I ended up pulling the trigger on it. And for 6 months, I let myself go. I didn't exercise at all. I ate a standard American diet, a lot of processed foods like sugary cereals and lots of soda and juices and granola bars and chips, cookies and crackers that we have here, lots of breads and pastas and like frozen meals and like hot pockets and SpaghettiOs and mac and cheese, like all the good stuff, right? Put on 75 pounds of pure fat. Like, I didn't bulk up. I wasn't like lifting. I was zero exercise. The story went viral. I went on a bunch of TV shows like Good Morning America, Jay Leno, Dr. Oz, and to talk about this. Ended up writing a book called Fit to Fat to Fit. And then from that, we created a TV show out of this, because the whole journey, the whole lesson that I learned was empathy for those that struggle. Before I was judgmental, to be totally honest with you. I came out of it truly humbled, with a better understanding of just how much of transformation is mental and emotional, and it's way overlooked. And so I wrote my book. The book got turned into a TV show where we had 2 seasons on A&E called Fit to Fat to Fit, where now we put other trainers who were like me, judgmental and in shape their entire life. We put them through that process. Cool. And it was really powerful to see them gain the weight and then be humbled and then lose the weight with their clients. And so that's what I did almost 10 years ago. Fast forward to today, I'm doing this journey again. I did it again. As a 40-year-old, because in 2011, social media wasn't what it is today. So a lot of people back then didn't really follow along, didn't see it as it was happening. A lot of people heard about it after the fact. But now in 2020, with social media and so many eyes available with like Instagram Live and Insta Stories and like all these like platforms we have, I wanted to showcase it, but this time more impactful, more educational. This time have a team of people behind me instead of my wife at the time filming me with her phone, and like us doing everything ourselves. And so this time around, I wanted to do it again as a 40-year-old, to kind of give that age group some hope. Like, hey, I know it's harder as we age, our metabolism changes, but hey, I'm going to do this journey with you. And then also, my message is to bring more empathy into the fitness industry, because it's an industry that's so judgmental. It's all based off of body image. And I would love if we could really be honest with ourselves and realize the importance of empathy, not just in this industry, but this world in general, especially after what happened in 2020 with all the divisiveness and the chaos. Now is a time for this world, unless we want to stay stuck in this divided, angry, resentful place where we're so quick to judge. I think empathy is one of those things that if we could learn to develop empathy, it could be a game changer in the world, but also in the fitness industry, because I honestly believe no one cares how much you know until they know how much you care. And that's that's a quote that I live by, because it makes so much sense, especially in this industry where you and I could talk about how to get 5% body fat, but that's to maybe 1% of the population at the most. 99% doesn't care about that, because the fitness industry is all about bro science and body image and like how to get 6-pack abs, but that's not very applicable or relatable to the general population. And so I'm trying to help bridge that gap. So that's me in a nutshell.
Yeah, no, it's cool. And you started this journey this time around at 181 pounds and 8.4% body fat. Mm-hmm. And then how many months did it take you to get to 244?
4 months. So I gave myself 4 months to gain weight this time. So I got up to 244, 26.2% body fat, my heaviest. So from August 27th of 2020 through December 27th of 2020, which that's my birthday, December 27th, my 40th. And now here I am about 7.5 weeks on my journey back to fit, down to about 32 pounds so far. Still got a little ways to go. So now it's time for me to walk the walk and put my money where my mouth is, and actually show people, hey, this is how I'm losing the weight, and you can do it with me. We'll do this together. because I don't want it to be a secret or anything like that. Like people can access, my meal plans, my recipes, and my
Yeah.
workouts to see what I'm doing, to give people hope and inspiration. And hopefully out of this, there will be more empathy in the fitness industry.
Yeah, listen, I love it. I look forward to Saturdays, Saturday weigh in. What are the numbers? But something I wrote down just as something to ask you was, do people, there's always critics. It's just
Yeah.
it's just the reality of the world. Do people say, well, Drew, it's easy for you because you've already been in shape. So you're going to you'll lose the weight faster than me, right? Do you find that there are some folks that use different things, I want to say against you, but they present them to you to justify maybe why they're not seeing the same gains or losses that you're seeing?
hmm Yeah, and that's actually a really good point. And when people say that, I think they expect me to like debate them, but I honestly agree with them 100%. Like if you factor in muscle memory, discipline, knowledge, I've only been overweight for 4 months. That's in no way, nearly. You can't compare that to someone who grew up, 50, 100 pounds overweight for the past 20 years, and now all of a sudden we're going to try and lose, we're the same weight. We're going to lose weight at the same rate.
Mm,
It's just not, every body is different,
yeah.
and the way we react to certain foods and certain forms of exercise, and the history we've been through and the experiences we've had and where our hormones are at now and our metabolic rate, there's all these factors. So
Mm,
yeah, I agree with him 100%, but this is the thing I'm trying to tell people is like, it's not me versus you. Like you could do that and be miserable, or you could do you versus you and say, hey, this guy is looks like me, but I'm going to do this journey with him. And my hope is that people kind of see that I'm experiencing the same things, like cravings. I'm experiencing the same thing, like with emotional eating and being sore and starting from the bottom. And so, yeah, it's not the same, but at least it's different than the six-pack trainer with 5% body fat telling people, stop eating so much and no excuses.
yeah.
This is more of it's a different approach, and it's more empathetic. And like I said, it's never really been done before in the fitness industry, at least not that I know of. Like, there's some actors who have done this for roles and they get paid millions of dollars. But
Yeah.
there's in the fitness industry, you don't really see a trainer look like I did and try and lose the weight with the followers or the clients. So it's a little bit unique approach that I think a lot of people are gravitating towards.
Yeah, and I think it's super cool because one day I was scrolling, I said, "Wow, what happened to Drew?" And you know what? But it caught my eye, and I
Mhm.
went back in your journey. I said, "Wow, look at what he's been doing to get to this place, and now look at his journey back." But the question that I have is when you're going from 181 to 244 in terms of your weight, like what is happening to you? You're obviously you're at 181, 8.4% body fat, 40 years old. You're living your life a good way. You're clean eating, you a lot of good habits. You're on your way up now to 244. What was happening to your psychology on that journey up? What were you
Yeah.
feeling sleep wise? All of that. What was
Mhm.
happening with every 5 to 10 pounds you were putting on?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I thought I did a really good job of highlighting everything that happened on a day-to-day basis, like with showing people what I was eating, talking about the mental and emotional changes I was experiencing. And this is really what I want to do, is build awareness of physical transformation and the food we eat, the lack of exercise or exercise we get, and how that affects your psyche, and it affects how you show up every day emotionally with your spouse or your loved ones or your kids or your job, how it affects your sex life, how it affects your relationships in your life, because it's all tied together. I know that we try and separate it, but like if you're moody and you're grumpy and you're sad and anxious and depressed, a lot of it stems from your physical health. And
Yeah.
physical health starts with food, exercise, sleep, stress management. And so what I was experiencing was really interesting because I kind of knew going into it, like, okay, I got this. I've done this before. I know it's going to be hard, but I'm aware of it this time, so it's not going to be as hard. And damn, I was freaking humbled this time around once again,
Yeah.
because it's way more powerful even for me. So let me kind of paint a picture for people. Here I am eating, cinnamon toast crunch and drinking soda, Mountain Dew all day, and eating like Hot Pockets and like SpaghettiOs and all these processed foods, right? The food tasted good. Don't get me wrong. Like I freaking love it. And yeah, it made me feel good temporarily. But then I would get a big spike in blood sugar levels because I'm measuring my blood sugar through a continuous glucose monitor, like implanted in my arm. So my blood sugar spikes like to 150 or 200 sometimes. And then it crashes down to like 50 or 60. And then I'm shaken because I need food. And this is only a couple hours later. So I could eat like 2,000 calories at one meal and then all of a sudden like be starving. And so you get these spikes and crashes and you're exhausted. So I felt like I had to take a nap almost every day. And this is where a lot of people get sleepy in the afternoon time because these spikes and crashes from all these the blood sugar levels. And then here it come around nighttime, I'm drinking a couple beers like most people do to relax at the end of the night, and then try and go to bed thinking, oh, I'm going to sleep for 8 hours. But now I'm tracking my sleep data on my Whoop app, which is really informative, tracking my HRV, my recovery. So I'm in bed for 8 hours. But my HRV, which is my ability to handle stress, and my recovery score used to be above 100, which is really good. My average crashed down to the 40s. And so now here I am waking up every morning sleep deprived. Okay, so what does that do? Anyone that's a parent out there knows having a newborn baby, you try and be a happy person when you haven't slept in like 2-3 weeks, like through the night. It's almost impossible because your hormones start to shift. And so your cortisol is through the roof all day long to keep you awake. You're drinking energy drinks, you're drinking coffee to stay awake, but you're still exhausted. You're moody, you're grumpy. Anytime there's stress, you don't have your fuse, is a lot longer when you're healthy and you're sleeping through the night. Now that you're sleep deprived, your fuse is super short. So yes, I was more reactive, less patient with my daughters or my girlfriend, during this journey. And it really carried over into my relationships, even though I'm aware of what's happening. And I work in this industry and I'm like, I understand what's happening. I still couldn't control myself because it's powerful. And then you multiply that times 4 months of living this life of like eating this food, you feel good temporarily, then your stomach hurts, you got digestive issues, but then you're starving, you eat more of that food, you're drinking lots of, sugary drinks, you're drinking alcohol at night, and then you're not sleeping efficiently, you're waking up sleep deprived, your testosterone drops, so your motivation, your energy, your libido is completely gone. You're emotional, you're crying during commercials, you're like upset at the smallest, stupidest things, and before you know it, like you're just not the same version of yourself. And you don't show up in this world like the best version of you, like the best dad or the best mom or the best boyfriend or girlfriend or husband or wife or the best business owner. Like it affects everything about you. And this is what I'm trying to show people is that your overall well-being, mental and emotional well-being stems from how you treat your body. And, like I said, eating healthy food, exercising, stress management, quality sleep. If you did that, the mental emotional stuff is so much easier. But if you're not taking care of that and you're trying to show up every day, it's like pouring from an empty cup. Like you're trying to pour to your kids, pour to your spouse, pour to your business, but there's nothing, it's not full. That cup isn't full. So you can't really give fully to any of these things. And you're constantly in survival mode. And that's kind of what happened to me personally. And this is, I think a lot of people saw that and they're like, they could see themselves through me and my journey where they're like, oh, I get it now why I treat myself and my spouse and my kids so poorly, because I'm not sleeping, I'm stressed out, I'm eating crap all the time, I'm not sleeping well through the night, I'm drinking alcohol to numb the pain at night, all kinds of things. And so that's how powerful it is.
I think it's awesome. Was there a piece of you that, here you are 40, you're tapping out at 244, like, do you ever get worried that you're not going to have the motivation to turn it around just because your biochemistry is in a total, disruptive state? Like, is there a piece of you that before you go into this, you say, I hope I can get back to 8.4, I mean, it's a fair question.
It is. And this happened on my first journey as well as this one, because the first journey, that was my first time being overweight. And so I was like, okay, I hope I could get back to fit. And I had my doubts. And before I even started the journey, here's the thing. I came to a place where I could empathize and I could see why people get stuck being 75 pounds overweight, because you've created this life of comfort. And you don't feel comfortable all the time, but the idea of working out, eating healthy food, being hungry, being sore, being tired, as an athlete, someone that's been through like wrestling camp and football camp, like as an athlete, how much work that's going to require. And here you are so out of shape. You're like, well, life isn't that bad. I'm overweight, but I'm still, I can still move. I can still play with my kids a little bit. Like, it's not that bad. because the idea of change seems so like impossible. It's like, man, I'm gonna have to like, be hungry all the time and
Yeah.
go to the gym when I'm tired and I'm sore and I have to do these hard things. And people are like, man, the idea of that just seems so hard right now. I'm just gonna stay here in this. So I saw why people get stuck. But for me, the thing that kept me going, honestly, Dana, was like me knowing that there's thousands of people doing this journey with me, and
Mm.
they're expecting me to walk the walk and be the leader. And if I can't ask them to do this, if I'm not willing to do this, so I'm like, okay, if these thousands of people from all over the world doing this journey with me, like if they're going to show up and follow these meal plans and these workouts, I better do the same thing. So
Yeah.
I get motivation from them doing this, and if it was me by myself, I probably wouldn't be able to do it in the amount of time that I'm doing it, because I'm accountable every day. What are you eating today, Drew? What's your workout today? Like people want to see that, and they want to know that I'm walking the walk. And so I can't really take a day off because I know people are relying on me. And so, but with that being said, I do have doubts even on this journey. Like, will I be able to get back to 8% body fat?
Yeah.
I don't know. I did the first journey when I was 30. Now that I'm 40, I don't know. I really don't. So far, so good. But we'll see as the journey continues.
Well, what's interesting is, again, when I go into the gym, I think about you, man. I really do. I do.
Thank you.
I get fired up, and I love, like I said, I love following it. And what I admire most outside of doing this whole thing is how patient you are, even though I know you're probably dealing with some other things behind the scenes where you're like, "Ugh," but to have the
Yeah.
patience to literally, celebrate 2 to 3 pounds down, or an inch here, when you look at pictures of yourself and say, man, I was built like an Adonis there, and now I have to be patient to go through this multi-month journey back. That's not easy to do. And to see pictures of yourself, and you're looking for the marginal losses, and you're celebrating in that, which I think is super cool.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like I think talking to the trainers on my show who did this journey, right? When they lost the weight after a month of effort and like killing themselves in the gym, they didn't have their six pack yet, and they were freaking out. Like, I put in all this work. Why am I not seeing these results? Like, I should be able to do this. And it's really it took almost every single one of them for the full 4 months to lose the weight and get back to where they were. But that was a good lesson for them and for me to realize that this is what your clients go through all the time. Like they want to see the results based off of the amount of work that they're putting in. And sometimes you could put in all the effort you want, the results might not be there. So you can't always control like what shows up on the scale. All that you can control is what you eat, how much of it you eat, how hard you push yourself in the gym, how hard you're recovering, like how much effort are you putting into recovering, and managing your stress. That's all you can control. What number pops up on the scale at the end of the week, you really don't have any control over that. All you can control is like doing the actions that week. And if you could just focus on that, and this is what I'm trying to tell people, focus on falling in love with the process.
Yep.
Because you're worth it, not because it's a punishment, not because it's a chore, but because you're worth fighting for your physical health. And if you could fall in love with the process, maybe take the results out of it for a little bit, like you mentioned before with the athletes, like take the results out of it for a second, just focus on this right here. What happens for most people is the results end up taking care of themselves over time as a byproduct of doing the day-to-day things. And then that way they're so much happier because their happiness isn't dependent on a number on the scale showing up.
Yeah.
They're just so focused on the process, and they learn to fall in love with it because it feels good. It feels good to eat real food. It feels good in the end. It feels good to sleep through the night. It feels good to do hard things in the gym and get stronger and perform. It feels good to do that. And so if you look at it that way, then the process doesn't have to suck as much.
Yeah. And there's that saying, right? Trust the process. There's nothing better I mean, there's a reason why that saying is what it is. Trust the process. And for you, you're trusting it again over multiple months. And what I
Yeah.
find, if you were to ask somebody to even just do 10, hey, listen, I want you to do 10 push-ups a day for the next 30 days. You'd have people that can't, number one, trust that process, but number two,
Yeah.
they can't stay compliant to a simple process like that. So I just think what you're doing is really cool. I think it's amazing. And for those that follow your Instagram page, there's a ton of learning, real case study learning, not some guy that just wrote a book and said, here you go, but he's taking you on a journey with him. And that is such a unique way to teach people about health lifestyle, weight loss, and vitality.
Yeah, it's so true. And that's kind of why this journey, like doing it a second time, is why I decided to do it, even though I swore I would never do it again, is because this time around, now I have an opportunity with so many more eyes on my journey and following it. But now I have so much data that I'm capturing. Like I could show people, my hormones, how it's affecting my sex hormones, my testosterone levels, how it's affecting my sleep, how it's
Mm.
affecting my blood sugar levels, how like tracking my macros and my calories. And people are like, whoa, there's 2,000 calories in that bean burrito that you just that vegetarian bean and cheese burrito. Like I had no idea. And
Yeah.
like so I'm doing all these little experiments to really educate people throughout the journey. So there's really something for everyone. For people that are more on the side of empathy, like they want to be understood, they want the mental and emotional side of this journey. But then the people that want to geek out on science and data and like,
Mm.
oh man, what's happening to his heart, what's happening to his liver, what's happening to his sleep, what's happening to his relationships. There's something for everyone. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do, is show people how powerful just a physical transformation can be. Because I think people go into a physical transformation, like, okay, I'm going to focus on like this diet and exercise thing over here, but I have my relationships, my finances, my business, and all this other stuff over here. And we think of that as separate. But if you could see it as like all tied together, like the physical health ties into the mental, the emotional, the spiritual health, even financial health sometimes, then you start to like, you start to connect the dots and realize all of this is connected. And if I take care of my physical health, it helps these other things, in my life fall into place so much easier. But if I'm not taking care of my physical health, then yeah, sure, try and show up the best husband or the best wife you can, or the best business owner when you got 2 or 3 hours of sleep. You're, hyped up on energy drinks and coffee all day long, and you need to take an Ambien to fall asleep. Like, yeah, see how long that, you can keep up with that. So I think as you get older, you get wiser. Hopefully people start to realize, okay, my physical health, I got to take care of that first and foremost. Because what happens, I see a lot of entrepreneurs, they sacrifice their health. They're like, no, man, I got this. Like, I'll take Adderall to stay awake during the
Yeah.
day, take an Ambien to sleep, and I'll repeat that. And I'll be able to, I'll be good. I'll be able to work like 20-hour days for the next 5 years. And then, you're kind of, you're borrowing, and, at some point you're gonna have to pay that back. And so people sacrifice their health to gain this wealth. And then you see a lot of people, now that they're wealthy in their 60s and 70s, now they're like, wait a second, I want to live. I'm gonna take care of my health all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And then, but now you're set in your ways and it's so much harder. So anyways, it's trying to find that balance of like, okay, how much can I do now? And like, what's the most bang for my buck? So maybe you don't have to work out at the gym 2 hours a day. Maybe as an entrepreneur, you're like, okay, 30 minutes a day, I can still spend time with my family. I can still show up, in my job. And then I'll prioritize 8 hours of sleep every night religiously.
Yeah.
And then, oh my gosh, I'm so much happier, even though I'm doing the same amount of work, because I have so much more focus and energy. My brain is healthy. My digestive system is healthy. It just, it's connecting those dots.
Yeah, totally. I've always said, you have so many folks that talk about leadership, or, building a multi-million dollar business, or, being a great executive, and nobody's talking about the health and vitality part. They're leaving that out. And it's like, we'll get to that later. Here's the tactics and strategies on how to be a better leader, but we're missing
Yeah,
because we're not talking about what powers that. But Drew, I got one last question for you before we jump.
sure.
I call it the Becoming a Champion show. You're a former
Okay.
athlete and a champion in my eyes. What does the word champion mean to you?
Oh man, that for me, that is becoming the best version of yourself, whether it's in a physical sport like that, or maybe an entrepreneurship, or maybe as a dad, as a mom, whatever it is, becoming the best version of yourself, where you feel like you're at a place in your life where, like, you know what, I've been through some hard stuff in the past,
Mm.
and I've overcome so many things, and now I've accomplished this one thing, whatever it is. For me, I love being a champion at being a dad. Like for me, that's like my biggest, most proud accomplishment, is when I show up and I can be the best dad to my girls. so so for me, that's what it is becoming the best version of yourself, even though you've been through some hard shit in your life and you've
Yeah.
overcome some hard things. For me, going through a divorce was one of my hardest things that I've been through. Leaving my religion, around the same time, like those were some hard things that I've been able to overcome. And so for me, that's what a champion is. And that's why when people ask me like, oh, who's a successful person, I'm like, probably millions of people that I've never met before. Because I bet you there's millions of people out there that are truly happy with who they are. They're fulfilled in their life. They've gone through some hard things, and they've figured out a way to overcome those hard things. And now they look at those hard things as a blessing
Mm.
and a growth for opportunity, instead of staying stuck in this victim mindset and blaming people for those hard things. and they've learned to let go of that. There's probably millions of people out there that I've never met that are successful, that are champions. And so that's kind of my definition. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I love it. I think it's great, and it's the truth. You know that
Mhm.
and the word that I'm going to leave today with is discomfort. We have to
Yes.
encourage people to move towards discomfort, and you'll appreciate this. In my office at Yankee Stadium, there's a sign across the border of the wall. It says, "Get comfortable with the uncomfortable."
Oh, dude, that's perfect. That's
You know,
exactly what we talked about.
so that's it, man. We have to break people out of comfort, and you know, I just wanted to get you on today because I love what you do. I'm a big fan, and you know, I love following the journey. So you guys got to make sure you head over to Drew's Instagram. It's awesome, and Saturdays are a real fun day,
Yeah,
weigh-in
man.
day.
I appreciate I appreciate it. Yeah. Yep.
So no, that's cool. That Drew, thanks, man. I'm just
Thanks.
I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. I told you it was going to be a good one. I like to say with the Becoming a Champion show, we only have good episodes where you can have some immediate takeaways that you could put into action. So one of the things I loved most was Drew saying that we are too comfortable. As a society, as people, we are too comfortable. And because we are too comfortable, the discomfort of working out, of changing our diet, of changing our mindset, it just seems like an uphill battle. But it's not. It takes discipline, but it takes discipline by taking the first step. Don't worry about all the other steps. Weight loss, physical, mental improvement. It's going to take you some time, but just attack the day. I always say win the day, win today. And if you do that over time, you get to where it is you want to go. Hope you enjoyed the Becoming a Champion show. If you did, like it, subscribe, help us build our community of champions. And I'm so happy that you are a part of that community. This is Coach Dana Cavalea. We'll see you next week with next week's episode. See ya.